where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun. The sagebrush whispers, the rivers hum. This land's a story just begun. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. Boots hit gravel and the prairie sings. With every hoofbeat, the frontier rings. From ranchers' hands to miners' veins, the spirit of the West remains. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. So come ride with me through the dust and time. Find the soul of Wyoming beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday, Wyoming. Welcome to Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line, where we talk about the things that, well, a lot of people don't talk about, but we are not inside the echo chamber because we don't have to be, because we're setting out to be something different, to have a different conversation, maybe what you're hearing from, I guess you could say, those established political candidates and things like that. So here we are, Wednesday. I've been kind of talking about this show here and there and posting about it. This is it, you guys. Washington, D.C., Republican Congress betrays the people yet again. Yet again. Well, you see, while we were all distracted by what's going on by the political theater, yeah, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it what it is. While we were all distracted by the political theater that's going on in Minnesota, Washington passed multiple minibus bills packed with all kinds of things that you and I thought we were going to stop funding. And I'm going to talk about some of those things this morning. And keep in mind, I'm just going to scratch the surface. You can go look at the bill yourself and see what's really going on out of Washington. But before I get into that, I just said the political theater in Minnesota, while we were all distracted, and I'm going to prove that that's exactly what's going on. You see, last April, we had this guy named Elon Musk getting close to a lot of fraud in the federal government. Doge, we called it. We called it Doge. Well, it got shut down. Doge got shut down. I want to remind you why Doge got shut down. It got shut down by our elected Republican Congress at their own behest and also at the behest of our president, President Trump. They shut down Doge because it was getting too close to things like the fraud in Minnesota. So why? So we've got this distraction, this political theater going on. And by the way, I understand that the right and the left, the Democrats and Republicans, play the political theater game just a little bit differently. We might call one side righteous and one side evil. But if you look at the facts of all that, it's political theater nonetheless. It's both parties distracting us from what's going on behind the curtain. And we could talk about the intricacies of Minnesota in a different episode. That's not what this is about. It's about pointing out that distraction, while we were all looking that way, they were doing all of this in Congress. So let's talk about what happened in these minibus bills. You guys remember that institutional bureaucracy called the Department of Education? You guys remember that? We were going to shut that down, right? We were going to close that. We were going to get rid of that, right? Guess what? Not only are we funding the Department of Education, we increased the funding by about $200 million. I thought we were going to get rid of that. You know, the Department of Education is now being funded higher than it has ever been funded at a total of just about $80 billion in these bills they just passed. I guess we're not. I guess we're not getting rid of the Department of Education. I thought we were doing that for the better of our kids across this nation. I guess we decided it's better to just fund it at record levels. What about the shutdown? All the things we were fighting about just last fall during the longest ever government shutdown. You know, funding and expanding, Medicare, Medicaid, government welfare programs. I thought we were fighting over not doing that stuff. What about not fighting over not funding foreign governments that have their own money? All of these things we were fighting about, tooth and nail. What was it, 30, 40 days the government was shut down? Guess what? It's all funded now. It's all funded in these bills that Congress just passed. It's amazing. It's amazing. I guess we've decided we're going to go ahead and fund everything because we don't want to have another government shutdown. I think if you're watching this video, you're probably going, I'd be fine with another shutdown so we could stand on some principles as conservatives, as Republicans. We're not going to do it, guys. We're going to fund everything. We're going to fund everything. And today I'm going to run through just some of what we're funding in these bills. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your minds. So here we go. I'm going to start and guys, this is surface level stuff. You can dig into these bills and get even more. We're expanding defense funding. Defense funding is being greatly expanded. I think Trump asked for another additional $700 billion or something like that. We're giving defense spending well over $800 billion. It's the biggest line item, defense spending. And what we're doing is we are going to increase arms production and readiness and the Golden Dome and so much more. By the way, the Pentagon has failed the last 7 audits. Nobody knows where the money's going. Nobody knows where the money's going, but we're going to go ahead and give them more to the tune of over 800 billion. The EPA is getting another 400 million for various programs, probably a bit more than that if you look in their allocations and things like that. The EDA, have you guys heard of the Economic Development Assistance Programs? Gets another 400 million. There's hundreds of millions going to regional commissions. By the way, the EDA and these regional commissions, you know what these are? These are the federal government's versions of the Wyoming Business Council. That's what these things are. We're putting hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, 400 million there and a couple hundred million in the commissions. We're looking at $800 million going into organizations just like the Wyoming Business Council. Taxpayers paid for that. Get this one. National Endowment of Bureaucracy getting $350 million. What is the National Endowment of Bureaucracy? Well, there was an amendment to eliminate this line item, but 80 Republicans went over and voted to keep it. You know what the National Endowment of Democracy does? It funnels money through NGOs, gets involved in national conflicts, things like this, does all kinds of things. But we're going to fund it anyways. 200 million, another 200 million for the Endowment of the Arts. I guess organizations like the Smithsonian Institute can't stand on their own. We're giving them $1 billion. Tens of millions for government parties and conventions, stuff hidden in appropriations. So we can all get together and hobnob and rub shoulders and elbows and whatever else we do. USAID is rolled into the State Department. That money can just still be sent anywhere as long as the State Department decides it wants to do it. And it might even arguably have less oversight than before. There's hundreds of little $1 million projects, appropriations that nobody knows about. Things going on for all these pet projects, all kinds of stuff, you guys. It's just absolutely bonkers. Oh, and get this one. Guess what? Your car could now be shut off. Thomas Massey tried to pass an amendment to stop that one too, where your car can't be shut off by an outside force or by anyone. Well, guess what? Your car can now be shut off by an outside force. There's no problem with that, right? Right? We're going to do this in the name of safety and security. We're going to do this. Did you know the Trump administration quietly released tens of millions of Title X funds to Planned Parenthood in December? And he asked Congress to be flexible on the Hyde Amendment. So we talk about supporting life, but behind the scenes, we're doing something different. Republicans come to the podium in Congress in Washington and talk about fiscal responsibility and reducing the size of government. And look at what we've done. But behind the curtain, they're doing absolutely the opposite. These minibus bills are rife with all kinds of government fraud and pork. Oh, and that whole refugee thing that we're fighting for, I guess, in Minneapolis or whatever. $5 billion more in funding. We're going to keep funding these things at record levels. Everything being funded at record levels. We're not cutting anything. We're not getting rid of anything. We're not dozing anything. And we're not talking about it either. The other thing we're not talking about is what the spending is doing to the U.S. dollar. Trump was asked yesterday, I believe it was, you worried about the U.S. dollar and it's losing value at a record pace? Huh. He said he thinks it's great. He thinks it's great, the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar is crashing, folks. Why do you think gold and silver are so high? Fiat currency is being destroyed by spending. But it doesn't look like we're going to stop spending, guys. And what I'm hearing, the word on the street I'm hearing is, well, we can't afford to have another shutdown. If you're a taxpayer here in Wyoming or in this nation, I bet you're kind of thinking, I don't really care if it shuts down again. If it needs to shut down so we can start abiding by some fiscal principles, then let it shut down. And by the way, it might shut down now based on everything coming out of the Senate. Oh, and by the way, these are the House bills, you guys. The Senate hasn't even touched these bills yet, or Senate is touching these bills. What are they going to add to it? What pet projects are we going to feed into that? I mean, this is mind blowing kind of stuff, you guys. And by the way, Wednesdays, I normally talk a lot about Wyoming. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So 4 days a week on this show, we talk about Wyoming stuff. But Wednesdays is about what in the world is going on in the world. What's going on in the world? What's going on in DC? What's Trump doing? Today is more about Congress and about what Trump's doing. But I'm sure he's supportive of what Congress is doing. So I just scratched the top surface on some of the stuff in this bill that we're funding. I maybe talked about 900. No, I didn't even talk about 900 billion. I maybe talked about 850 to 900 billion dollars, maybe about half of what's in this spending bill. We are funding every aspect of institutional bureaucracy at record levels while we were all looking the other way. We need to wake up, folks. We need to pay attention. A lot of people ask, what are the reasons, Joseph, that you decided to leave the party? Well, this is some of it. This is some of it. We're not being honest with the people in this country. Our leaders aren't being honest with the people of this country. We're being continuously distracted and chasing headlines while they're doing all this stuff. Basically, behind the people's back and in plain sight. And you have a few beacons like Thomas Massey standing on the hill, shining a light, going, guys, we can't keep doing this. We shouldn't keep doing this. Thomas Massey came on the record just a couple of days ago and said his consultants had to quit because they were told by the powers that be, if they continued to work for Mr. Massey, they would lose all of their political clients. So now we're using government to punish dissenters for standing on principles against the mainstream. I'm not loved. I'm not loved by the parties in general because I'm willing to have these conversations. I'm willing to do this. By the way, I'm not saying I'm a Tom Massey, but in a way, I kind of consider myself that way because we cannot continue to walk through this with our eyes closed. A political theater going on around us to keep us distracted from the truth. So what can we do, you guys? We've got to start speaking out. We've got to start calling our representatives. So we don't want another government shutdown. So at what cost is that coming to you and I? Let's check just for fun. Where are we at? US Debt Clock, usdebtclock.org. Let's pull this up real quick. Let's take a look. I'm going to share this with you guys. Let's see where we're at here. And I'm going to move myself over here to the corner real quick. All right, here's where we are, guys. By the way, these numbers are accurate. Pretty relatively accurate. We're on our way. We're going to be 40 trillion before we know it. We're going to blink. We're going to be at 40 trillion. And by the way, our total debt goes down here, guys. We don't really talk about this number. We have got to elect. I'm going to use this word because I don't know what else. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know what else to say. We have got to elect more Thomas Masseys. We've got to elect people who are going to stand on principle. And you might not always agree. I don't expect that everyone will always agree with me, or I don't expect it with me. But if we don't start electing more Thomas Masseys that are going to stand on principle and stop buying into the echo chamber, we won't be able to turn this thing around, guys. We're not going to be able to turn this thing around. Not with the way they're spending, but maybe that's the goal. I take off my political, my practical, my objective, my logical hat for a minute, and being a person of faith and a Christian, a Christ follower. I know what the future looks like. The Bible tells us what's going to happen. We know the truth. That this is all going to come crashing down at some point. There's going to be a new world order or one world order, and a loaf of bread is going to cost a day's wages. We know these times are coming. But are we obligated, or ought we to stand? Ought we to stand for something? Ought we to stand up and speak the truth, the unpopular truth when it comes to these things? I think we should. I think if you're watching this and maybe you're only tuning in and you're just now seeing little bits and pieces of this, today I'm talking about, while we were all distracted, what Washington, D.C. is doing and this great betrayal to the American people. We elected this Congress and this president to reduce government, to cut waste, to stop spending $400 million in the EPA, to stop spending hundreds of millions of dollars on programs we don't want, $200 million, endowments of the arts, things like this. Department of Education is continuing. You're just tuning in. Did you know we're funding now the Department of Education at a record level? Oh, and by the way, they can shut your car off if they don't want you traveling. Of course, for your safety and the safety of everybody else. Yeah, I'm kind of regurgitating some of what I've already said because I do see some new people are joining, and I just wanted to kind of cue you in on what's going on. So, Joseph, your question now is like, Joseph, what do we do? What do we, the people, do? Well, guys, we always say that this has got to happen at the ballot box, and it really does. I mean, that's the only thing that we can do as the people, right? We can call our representatives. We can yell at the top of our lungs about these things. But the ballot box is where this happens. Folks, we cannot, and you know what? I can say this because I'm outside the party, and maybe that's selfish. Maybe that's a little bit too political. We have got to stop electing Republicans and Democrats. We got to start electing civil servants, people, regular folks that get up and go to work every single day of the week, and understand what's going on, and are ready to actually do something about this. And right now, you guys, I mean, the last few weeks have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Congress that we have currently elected is not going to do this. They will say that they're going to do it from the podium, but based on what they're doing, their actions, actions speak louder than words. Based on what I see going on here, we're using distraction and political theater to do more of the same, and perhaps in a slightly different way, but mostly it's just more of the same. It's the status quo. We wouldn't even be having the conversation about Minnesota or Minneapolis, I guess you could say, if it wasn't for an independent journalist that uncovered it. Because Congress already proved they didn't want to doge the government last April when they kicked Doge out. We're having that conversation because, well, now we need to save face because stuff was exposed. That's just the truth, guys. You can look at it yourself, your own logical, objective mind, and figure that out. That's what's going on. Look at this spending bill. If you have time, throw it into ChatGPT or throw it into AI and ask AI to kick out what's being spent where. A lot of it's ambiguous, it's appropriations to departments, and who knows how all that's being spent. There's no accountability for that stuff. So I want to wrap up this show today with some thoughts that I had, some biblical thoughts that I had. While really both parties seek to divide us, and that's just my opinion. You're welcome to comment and say, hey, Joseph, you're wrong. Both parties don't want to divide us, but I believe that our broken two-party system that has broken every aspect of the modern life with institutional bureaucracy, I think they want to keep us divided as possible. The way we stop being divided is we go outside of that echo chamber and we be something different. We do something different. So here's some thoughts, some verses that came to my mind that I wanted to share with you guys in closing today. Ephesians 4:3 says, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. We should make every effort in our lives through the Spirit of God to keep that bond of peace around us. Romans 6:17. Watch out for those that cause division and keep away from them. It's a warning, you guys. Romans 6:16-17. Just watch out for them. 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, seeks around of a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Causing this division, folks. This division isn't just on the left. This division is coming from both sides to divide you and me, the everyday people, the everyday folks. And this is not to say that there aren't principled, good, godly men and women within government, but they're being swallowed up by the echo chambers of their parties. I want to encourage people to rise up and step out and do something different. And last thing is Matthew 12:25 says, every kingdom divided against itself will be laid in waste. No city or house divided against itself will stand. Guys, we're there. We are so divided against ourselves that we will not stand. But you know what? That may be God's plan. I believe that Trump elects the leaders of men for a purpose. And it may be that our time has come, that we're going to see this new world order unfold right before our very eyes. But in the meantime, we ought to abide in the truth, and we ought to speak the truth even when it's difficult. And so I want to encourage you with that today, that as we look at this with our blinders off, who are you going to serve? What are you going to say? Are you going to go with the narrative, or are you going to speak the truth? We're going to separate the wheat from the chaff, folks. We're called to love our neighbors. We're called to speak the truth. We're called to call it like it is. We're called to ignore the noise. We're called to be sober-minded and be watchful. So I will leave you guys with that. Wednesdays are usually pretty crazy because there's so much crazy going on. But anyways, hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I'm going to wrap this show up. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about property rights. That'll be fun. I'm also going to be changing the time of the show from 6:30 to 7:30. Just going to be a little bit better for our schedule around here with the kids and stuff like that. And, getting the morning routine going. So that's going to be changing next week. Tomorrow, third Friday, we're going to have a little bit of a fun time. I'm going to share with you just my story, who I am, what has made me who I am. My family will say hi. It'll be a fun time on Friday as well. Do not lose heart. God has overcome the world. This is not our home. Don't put your faith in Congress. Don't put your faith in me. Put your faith in God. So don't lose heart in this stuff. But just know we're at that tipping point, folks. And that quiet majority, so many of you that aren't involved, you've got to get involved. We need you. We need you involved. So, anyways, I'll wrap the show up. God bless you guys. I'm going to play a song here at the end. Kind of cool what you can do with AI. It's a great song about loving your enemies, praying for folks. Anyways, with that, you guys might notice I'm also still a little sick, a little nasally today. So be praying for me. Hopefully I'll feel better soon. Take care, everybody. God bless.
Sun up shining on a gravel drive. Granddad's coffee in a styrofoam cup. Says, boy, this world will tell you keep what's yours. But that ain't how we were brought up. We bow our heads at the table, thank the Lord for the food and the fight. 'Cause loving folks who love you back is easy, but that ain't walking in the light. Love your neighbor, mow his yard when he's hurting. Love your brother when he's slamming your door. Love the stranger when your pride says ignore him. Love the bitter heart twice what you did before. You can love your friends on Sunday morning. with a spine, highlighter on every other page. Says turn the other cheek, ain't just a slogan. It's a narrow road you gotta pave. We pass the plates and the casseroles, fix the porch where the storm rolls through. When they curse your name, you hit your knees, say, Father, bless them like you do. Love your neighbor, mow his yard when he's hurting. Love your brother when he's slamming your door. Love a stranger when your pride says ignore him. Love the bitter heart twice what you did before. You can love your friends on Sunday morning, but Jesus taught a different kind of war. If you really want to shake this world for heaven, love your enemies more. Yeah, your enemies more. She's got a Bible with a cracked leather spine, highlighter on every other page. Says, turn the other cheek, ain't just a slogan. It's a narrow road you gotta pay.
You pass the plates and the casseroles, fix the porch when a storm rolls through. When they curse your name, you hit your knee,
Say, Father, bless them like you do.